What's up, Pueblo? What's up, Pueblo City specifically, the registered voters of Pueblo City, since the county is different than the city. So today, here on August 29th, on a Tuesday, 2017, I finished this article about the Civil Service Commission. Now, anytime I walk down the street, anytime I go anywhere, everybody, they know me as the checks and balances man and the rule of law man. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in checks and balances. That's the cornerstone of American politics. You got the executive, judicial, legislative branch. We have checks and balances because we don't believe in tyranny. We don't believe in autocracy, rule by one. We don't believe in a monarchy. That's why we have the three branches of government. That's why we have a republic. That's why we have a representative democracy. So the rule of law is just that we all follow the rules, so nobody is above the rule of law. If the governor wants to just, pull a Columbine, he's going to get in trouble for it too. If he commits a crime, nobody's above the law. So no matter how rich or powerful that you are, if you break the law, then you get punished just like everybody else. So, I just want to talk about the Civil Service Commission race, okay? For the last whole bunch of elections, out of 19 elections, the Civil Service and the Water Board race were not contested. They were not contested at all. So when they are contested, these are momentous historic occasions. So let's remember 2009. Who could forget the triple threat of fire and fury with the Water Board Battle Royale of 2009? Remember, it was Gardasar v. Autobee v. Finn. And Gradisar and Autobee won the two Water Board seats in the rare 2009 Pick 2 Water Board election. It's 5 seats. The election was Pick 2 out of 3, so essentially only one person was going to be the loser. And that was Finn. Finn lost. Gradisar, he said that he wanted the people of Pueblo to have delicious, crisp water. And then Autobee said that he wanted crystal clear water. But Finn only vowed clean water. And that pessimism is what lost him the election. Autobee actually beat Finn by more than 6,000 votes. So he got, blown out of the water. Autobee was put into the water board just like Gradisar 2009, but Finn did not. So, woo-wee, huh? Ed Brown, he's the Calvin Coolidge of Pueblo, isn't he? Mr. I blend in with the background like a chameleon. Mr. He's invisible. He's just, he's white. He's so lily white that you don't really notice him. He's very quiet, very humble. Calvin Coolidge said something about he's not a talker because he's more of a listener. I forget what Calvin Coolidge said, but he said the business of America is business, which is, I don't know. Isn't that corporatism, isn't that fascism when the corporations and government get together? Yes, it is. So I know he's the representative for District 3 until I need to recall that information on my own. Ed Brown is stealth. He is stealth. He's a chameleon. He blends in with the background. You don't even know he's there until he wins the city council seat out of nowhere, right? He got his 100 signatures in before the other two candidates, Stapleton, Michael Stapleton, and Farrell. I think it's Tommy. I keep on getting his first name wrong. But Farrell, like a feral cat. He's like a wild cat. And then Stapleton, the libertarian. So, out of the last 19 elections, this millennium, in the 2000s, 17 of the 19 elections for Water Board or Civil Service Commission did not matter. They're irrelevant. They did not matter whatsoever at all. Because either one person ran for it or nobody ran for it, and then they had to appoint somebody. Only 2 of the 19 in the last 19 elections for Water Board and Civil Service Commission minus 2005 because I didn't see the county didn't have the information for the 2005 election. So 17 of the 19 elections were not necessary, fucking relevant. Nobody got their signatures in there to run against him. Nobody's paying attention. This is a failure of the human resources. This is a failure of the Civil Service Commission themselves and Sam Azad's office. You need to get out there and get the people to not only apply for these city jobs, but to run for city council. But my theory is that power protects itself. So that's the reason why nobody is raising their hand. The Civil Service Commission is actually probably doing the opposite. They're supposed to protect meritocracy. They're supposed to be against nepotism, but it seems like with the police chief, it was nepotism all the way. We're going to choose internally amongst ourselves. We're going to pick a winner. So there was no election, and then that's ironic too. People who want a popularly elected mayor, how come you don't want a popularly elected police chief? The powers that be, the elite, just says, here's your police chief. And then people are like, yay, go Troy. Like, you just can't wait to get in line and start kissing his ass. But, you want to vote for the mayor, but you don't want to vote for the police chief? There's some controversy over who actually has more power between them two. Is the police chief more powerful than the mayor? Not if the mayor doesn't know that he is. Or not if the police chief bullies the mayor around. So, that's, does he understand that? That he's works for the city manager? That's the head executive? So, it's incredible. So, let's get a popularly elected mayor, but not a popularly elected city police chief. Look, I believe that's the only principle that strong mayor could believe in. We believe in popularly elected people. Okay, then you believe in a popularly elected police chief. Oh, no? How come? Because you're a hypocrite. Okay, gotcha. Also, those who support strong mayor do not believe in a strong city council. So you want a strong executive branch, which is what we have now, and you want a weaker city council. And if you're a city council candidate who wants a weaker city council, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. If you want a weaker city council, that's almost like a man who wants to self-castrate himself into a eunuch, into a, zombified eunuch. Or somebody who cuts their legs off right before they go climbing up a mountain. You're running for city council and you're saying you want zero power. I want a strong executive and I want a strong legislative. I want the executive and the legislative to be as strong as the judicial branch monopoly is right now. The police tail should not wag the judicial branch dog. There needs to be some accountability with these police. And by internally, just what? They're going to have military tribunals. They'll go ahead and regulate themselves. I want them to care about the entire people, not for them to be their own little gang. Not to say it's us versus everybody else. So that was an exciting race in 2009 when the water board was competitive. And then in 2011 was the other competitive race. Out of the 19, there's only 2 competitive races. So we're wasting everybody's time and money with these competitive race bullshit, non-competitive races, uncontested elections. So 2011 was the year that the Civil Service Board would get their competitive election when Danny Archibald bested 2 other candidates with a 40% plurality. So Mr. Sam Azad, Pueblo's city manager, he hires and fires everybody. And then the Civil Service Commission, their purpose is to make sure that there's no nepotism among those hires. That's the civil service's main job, to prevent nepotism, to ensure a meritocracy. And that's it. It's a 3-person board, 3-person civil service board with 6-year terms, and they screen every potential employee for the city, including but not limited to the police department, the bomb squad, the mounted patrol unit, patrol division, traffic division, Chaplain, Corps, Operations Bureau, Crisis Intervention Team, Honor Guard, Services Bureau, 911 Communications Center, Records, Property and Evidence, the Department of Health, the Fire Department, the Deputy City Manager, Internal Services, the Department of Information and Technology, Public Works Department, EMS, maintenance workers, Civil Service bureaucrats, security guards, Parks and Recreation Department, administrators, Housing and Citizen Services clerks, purchasing, human resources, and Pueblo Transit. Every city employee is hired and fired by Sam Azad, but the list that's provided comes from the Civil Service Commission, and they make sure that none of the people in city government is anybody's friend or family. Only the merit, only a meritocracy, only if the best candidate for the job is the only person that they're hiring. That's the point of the Civil Service Commission. They are that fail-safe. They are that board that prevents nepotism from happening, from the spoil system or patronage, boss hog type of spoil system. So that's a lot of people, right? All those people, the bomb squad, police department, Pueblo Transit, EMS, mounted patrol, so records, Parks and Recreation. We get $81 million in Pueblo City's budget. How much of the $81 million is going for these departments? How many of these are going to their employees? That's the question I want to ask Michael Stapleton. Okay, you're a libertarian, so you believe in very limited government. How limited government? Do you believe in any government at all? Milton Friedman believes in some government. Milton Friedman, he believes that we need that the amount of government that we need is just basically to make sure that the corporations are acting fairly. So you need a tribunal. He believes in the court system. So Milton Friedman, he's for limited government. Thomas, I think this has been misappropriated to him. Thomas Jefferson, but he had said something. The best government is the government that governs least. I think it was Henry David Thoreau who actually said that, but that's what a libertarian believes. The best government is one that governs least or doesn't govern at all. So that's perfect, right? If we don't even need a government, we all could just live in unison all happily and, that would be perfect, right? So he's an anarchist. So what government does he actually believe in? Does he believe in the courts? Does he believe in the police? How well thought out is his libertarian beliefs? Because it's ironic that he's against government, yet he's running to be in government. Maybe he's just trying to make that seat irrelevant. Maybe he's just trying to make District 1 irrelevant and just cut all, he's going to be for a radical austerity. So I hope that Pueblo City isn't like the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912, the Chinese dynasty that the Manchu had set up. That failed because of its bloated bureaucratic class. So the bureaucratic class want to save themselves. They're all getting paid. They're all living high on the hog. The Civil Service Commission ceased to function. Everybody's friends and family was being hired on. Everybody was voting internally. No new people was allowed. Only the bureaucratic class gets to carry on. Only the government class gets to carry on. They get full-time jobs. They get to take our taxpayers to feed their children, taxpayer funds to feed their family. Meanwhile, there's fucking homeless people and people barely surviving out here. So if you don't know the executive director of the Civil Service Board or the Water Board or how proficient they've done their jobs, then you aren't qualified to vote in either election. Who's the Civil Service executive director? Who is the Water Board's executive dictator? Who? Who, I ask you, who? So if you don't know who's running the Water Board, Seth Clayton, or who's running the Civil Service Board, Manuel Alcala, or how good they've done their jobs, you're not qualified to vote in either one of these elections. How are you going to vote for a board member when you don't even know the main dictator that they voted for? It's just a popularity contest for you assholes, isn't it? You're not trying to vote for the best board member. You don't care for democracy. That's why it's okay that the police chief was chosen behind closed doors. That's acceptable to the strong mayor advocates. Do you believe in democracy? You really want popularly elected mayors? How come you don't want a popularly elected police chief? How come you want to get rid of the legislative branch for the city? Why even have a city council? If you just want a strong mayor, let's get rid of city council. You want a strong mayor? Then why do you have, and you're running for city council, you're a city councilman or a candidate for city council? You're cutting out your legs. You cut out your own legs and you're sitting there defending the executive branch. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Hell, why don't you make strong manager, strong judicial branch, and then just abolish the legislative branch? Hell, why don't you go in there and just say, I'm going to put a piece of tape over my mouth, and I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to vote for anything. I'm going to make sure city council is the weakest it's ever been. We will just be sycophantic kiss asses to whoever is elected mayor or the city manager. Just do it that way, right? So the executive dictator of the Civil Service Board is Manuel Alcala. The executive director of Pueblo City's 5-member. Water Board is Seth Clayton. The Civil Service Board is 3 members. Water Board's 5 members. The superintendent of Pueblo City Schools is Charlotte Macaluso. And the city manager of Pueblo is Sam Azad. And they're all decided by legislative boards. Legislative boards. The policy, the budget deciders, the voters, the board. Not direct democracy by the people, but by the people who were voted in to represent the people. The parliament, the legislatures, the boards. Come on, shit. The point for a civil service board commissioner, the point for the commissioner is to vote for Manuel Alcala. Manuel Alcala's been in there for 1 year. There was a lady that was in it before. Manuel Alcala does not believe that we the people should know who the last civil service administrator was. He don't think that we should know the executive director. He says he doesn't know if that's information that we should be allowed to have. She's being paid with public dollars, so she's financed with public dollars to be a public servant, and he doesn't even know if we the people get their name. Why? Because power protects power. He's supposed to be telling us all the information that we need to know in order to get those city jobs. But unfortunately, the city of Pueblo has its own little private cabal, its own little clique, its own corrupt government that has been running shit. And now with a strong mayor, they're going to make it even more corrupt. They'll be accountable to nobody. They won't be accountable to a charter, to a constitution. They won't be accountable to anybody except for maybe a brave lawyer or a brave judge who just says, y'all are not acting legally. So, because I'm voting for the board, the civil service commissioner gets on the board, and then the board decides the executive director. That's what we're voting for. When it comes to the city council, they're a board too. They're going to vote for the city manager if, the city charter stays as it is. So we're not voting for the man, we're voting for the man who votes for the man, or the woman, as you will. So we're voting for, not the man, but the man who votes for the man, so we need to make sure that they're choosing the right people. When we vote for our water board candidates, then they're going to vote Seth Clayton. He's been in there for a year. Manuel Alcala's been in there for a year. Then you have the superintendent of Pueblo City Schools, Charlotte Macaluso. And then you have Sam Azad, who's the city manager of Pueblo. All these were decided by the legislative board. We voted for the people who got into that board, and then that board voted for those individuals to run the entire show. So it's just like the board and a CEO. You get a board of directors for a corporation, then they vote for the CEO, and then the CEO runs things. That's how it's supposed to work. So that's important. That's what the city council manager or the city council is for. That's what the water board's for. That's what the civil services board is for. And the school board. So we got the the Civil Service Commission. We have the water board. We have the school board. We have the city council. All 4 of those that we're voting on this year are all legislative positions. They're not executives. We're voting for the men and women who will hire the man or the woman. That's what we're doing. So how good are their judgment? Are they willing to fire, any one of these? I'm sure they're great people. Manuel Alcala, I'm sure he's doing a great job being the director of Civil Service Board. He's always answered every question I've presented to him. But Manuel Alcala, he's been in there for 1 year. And I want my civil service board member to fire Manuel like it wasn't shit. The moment that Manuel Alcala isn't doing his job and he doesn't like him, fire him and get a new director. That's your power. That's your point. If you get in there and you kiss Manuel Alcala's ass, or if you get in there and kiss Charlotte Mucaluso or Sam Azad or Seth Clayton's ass, you're the exact opposite of what I wanted. I wanted a person that was going to speak up to the man. You hire the person and then you corral them. Then you have the parameters of policy. And you handle them. You say, this is your lane. This is what we want you to do. In fact, Manuel Alcala's got the perfect mentality. He can't even call himself the executive director. He calls himself the department director of the Civil Service Board. He said that he'd been in it for the last year. He said he couldn't give me the name of the last civil service administrator, which annoys me. But he's always answered every one of my questions. But he's 100% wrong about that. The last department director is a public servant being paid with taxpayer dollars. We, the public, have a right to know where our monies are going to. Who is getting our money? And therefore, her name is public record. But power protects power. And that's the opposite. That's the opposite of what I want in a civil service board member. Or its dictator who pretends like he's not. One of the stated objectives of the civil service board is to provide effective, efficient, and friendly customer service to any and all the Pueblo City citizens who have business with the Civil Service Commission. Manuel Alcala is a conservative. He plays his cards close to his chest. He's always answered any direct questions I've given him, but he seems very annoyed that anybody would ever dare ask him. He's the head tyrant. Don't you question me. I'm allowed to ask you questions, Manuel. His phone number is 719-553-2635. That's the Civil Service phone number. And then the Civil Service Executive Dictator's office is located at 301 West, let's say B Street? I don't know. You can check that out. It's in Pueblo, Colorado. So the last executive director of the Civil Services Board retired over 1 year ago as a woman, and Manuel Alcala's been in charge ever since. How's he doing? Is he running civil services, is he doing a good job with it? I guess the only way to know is actually go to one of these meetings and see. According to Alcala, he answers to the Civil Service Board and he takes direction from Sam Azad, the city manager. So this is actually a really good mentality for Alcala, Manuel Alcala. So he's the main executive dictator of the Civil Services Board. Manuel Alcala is, whether he knows that or not. Now, he can be fired by the board, so the board is staying on him and he understands that he's serving at their pleasure. But I don't think the superintendent, I watched the superintendent give orders to the other student, board members. The superintendent isn't supposed to tell the board what to do. The board's supposed to be telling the superintendent what to do. Can you read this? No, why don't you read it or get somebody else to read this, I'm here making sure you do your job. If I'm on the school board, I'm making sure the superintendent does their job. If I'm on the city council, I'm making sure Sam Azad is doing his job. And as soon as that they're not, then I should be able to fire them like it ain't shit, like it ain't nothing. Like, oh my God, what about the political fallout? What about my relations? What about people? How will people look? If you don't think they're doing a good job and then you have no influence with the person, I don't see how you have to. You have to say fire them. You have zero influence with them. Yeah, they got to be fired. So I don't want them to fire them. I'm not saying that. I don't know if he's actually done a bad job or a good job. I just want them to be willing to fire them. Are you willing to fire a piece of shit executive dictator? That would be the greatest power ever. To hire and fire executive dictators, I'd be doing every year. Every year I'd have a new water board director. I would assume that's what I would have until one just, every year just hits all the benchmarks, is just, Mr. Publicity, Mr. Happy, just talks to the public, gets all the answers out there to everybody. So I think it's pretty humbling. I think it's pretty humbling that he says he's just a department director. That's what Manuel Alcala says of the Civil Service Board. He could be, lying. He could be pretending that he's not this executive director or the administrator, as the website says. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Manuel Alcala, he admits that he answers to the 3-member Civil Service Board, as well as to Mr. Sam Azad, and not the other way around, which is how it actually works. This is how it should work. The way Manuel Alcala is behaving. He's the executive dictator at the pleasure of the board. And as soon as the board doesn't like his work, the board gets rid of him. Now, if the board likes his work, then he gets to do as the fuck as he pleases. He's the head tyrant. He's the civil service dictator. Manuel Alcala is. So that's essentially the job. The board picks the boss and then keeps the boss in line. If you can't keep the boss in line, then you fire them. That's the that's the city council that I want. It's the school board I want. It's the water board I want. And it's the civil service commission that I want. A strong-headed legislator. You write the rules, you could do the budget, you could put the work in, and you ain't worried about firing a goddamn dictator. You ain't worried about that. You just want to make sure that the city of Pueblo has good government. And when it's not good government, you'll fire the bad dictators and you'll get a new one in there. So I think it's a good thing that the board essentially is the parliament. This is the people, and the people keep tabs on the dictator. So the elected board, who's representative of the people, that's who Manuel Alcala feels like he works for. So I think it's good. The relationship, it seems like, the relationship that has been fostered with Mr. Manuel Alcala and the Civil Service Board and Sam Azad is a healthy one. It's a healthy democratic one. It prevents tyranny. Okay? So it's ironic. Again, I'm going to pick on Nick Gradisar's illegal strong mayor ballot question. Essentially, the people don't want any legislative restraints whatsoever. Now, city council can fire its mayor. Now, city council can fire its city manager whenever the fuck it wants to. Instead of doing this complicated recall election. This cumbersome, complicated, expensive recall election. Instead of doing a recall election, we could just fire him. The ones who want to get a mayor in there now don't want the city council to fire the mayor. They don't want them to have that power. They want the city council to have less power. We already have a strong executive. He's a strong executive. The city manager is a strong executive. So having a mayor isn't going to change shit. It's still a strong executive. But what it will do is it will make the legislative branch, the city council, less powerful. What kind of person would say that they want less power? I mean, I guess maybe you're Mr. fucking humble, Mr. Gandhi. But since I'm Mr. Checks and Balances, since I'm Mr. Anti-Tyranny, I believe in having a strong legislative branch and a strong executive branch, because we need to have these two branches as strong as the judicial branch. The judicial branch is the strongest branch around here. They got a monopoly of power. And then the ones that have even more power than the judicial branch is the cop branch. The cop branch has all the power. The cop dog wags the judicial branch. The cop tail wags the judicial branch dog. So, who's the oversight committee for the cops? Do we have one? We didn't have a board decide the next police chief. Troy could be very much a good man. But the way that he was decided, the way that he was picked behind closed doors, he's the only person that filed for an application. He was the assistant police chief forever. So he's just next in line. Let's give it to him because he's next in line. I have no idea if he believes in the golden rule. I don't know if he believes in eye for an eye justice. Is he a fair man? We didn't vote for him. They didn't even ask the public what the fuck we thought. Then they only had one applicant, which is a failure of human resources and the Civil Service Commission and Sam Azad's office to begin with. Only one candidate ran for police chief. I would have rather my average neighbor, my baker neighbor, my burger flipping neighbor, my bus driver neighbor be police chief than one of them. Because then I know that they are one of us. And they would be obedient to civilian control. So, checks and balances. I'm Mr. Checks and Balances. I'm Mr. The Rule of Law. I believe in democracy. We need a strong executive and a legislative branch. We need to keep the 1954 charter or put the charter convention on the ballot. Those are our options anyways. Whether or not strong mayor fails, which it will, I'm going to keep on being for checks and balances and the rule of law, which are two major cornerstones to American democracy.